Hey everybody, this is Marcel with Darkside Politics, episode 3. With me is my colorful co-host Sham. How's it going, Sham?
That's pretty good. I wonder if you saw that seizure I just had. It's part of who I am.
Yeah, I did see it. Uh, I just kept thinking about the kid that was doing all the dabs in the GIF at the baseball game. I don't know if you've seen that one, but we'll have to show it to you afterwards. That's just what I kept thinking about. Um,
I don't know that GIF, but you will have to show it to me afterwards. Our first story of the night is going to be the debt ceiling and what's happening, and pretty much the whole story about what's going on with Republicans trying to cut cost, supposedly, and us not willing to raise the debt ceiling, et cetera, et cetera. And so currently we are in $30.1 trillion of debt, and that was as of 2022. Our debt limit is at $31.4 trillion. And I just want to say, like, that's a lot of fucking money. And half of that is going to goes to Social Security, Medicaid, and Medicare. And then after that, military spending, which is about 12%. And that's in the discretionary spending category. And they call it national defense. I don't really know what we're defending ourselves against, but but basically on April 26th, Republicans passed a bill in the House that would raise the debt ceiling by 1.5 trillion and required 4.8 trillion in spending cuts. Now, those spending cuts obviously are going to target the people that don't really they kind of need the help. And it's really just tragic. And once again, another example of how fucked up this place is. Marcel, tell me about these spending cuts. What are they cutting?
yeah, so I mean, this is basically how every single one of these debt ceiling fights happen, and it's one of the reasons why the Republican Party loves to let them happen because they use them as a way to pressure Democrats to try to make some cuts that Democrats honestly don't want to make because, well, there's just not much to cut. But historically, it's been all right. We have the three albatrosses. We got Social Security, Medicaid, Medicare, and the defense budget. Republicans have no problem cutting Medicare, Medicaid, Social Security. Democrats are the ones protecting that. It's the small part or the one big piece of pie that we actually use that actually benefits everyday working people. So of course, Democrats want to try to prevent that as much as possible from being cut. And then of course the military is we can't cut the military because how else are we going to forcibly exert capitalism and freedom across the globe? So however, McCarthy certainly overachieving here when it comes to his own abilities, managed to get a debt limit package passed in the House, as he said, Sham, and it's going to be cutting a lot of things that I think we just don't want to see cut.
What
Things that
really kind of bothers me about this situation, Marcel, is the fact that they could just reorganize the budget, to why don't we take some of that military spending? We literally spend more than the top 10 countries in the world and move our military spending to, I don't know, education or healthcare or literally the 50 billion other things that we could be spending it at. And it's just why not? To be exact, we spend $767 billion on national defense. National defense. That doesn't even include veterans benefits and services. We could, if you guys really want it, we could move that budget to some of the veterans benefits. But of course that's going to mess with the military industrial complex, and that's going to lower the dividends that our fellow congressmen and senators can make every month or every however often they're paid. And it's that would just make too much sense, I think.
Yeah, well, on top of that, like, if we just redirected the money, then how else will we pay for the next round of tax cuts? Um, there's a lot of stuff that America doesn't do, but there's one thing that we do, and that's cut taxes for rich people. Um, and that's actually part of the, while they're making all these cuts to, uh, all these discretionary programs, including things like veterans healthcare, education, et cetera. They're also, what's the word I'm looking for? Making permanent Trump's 2017 tax cuts, which definitely are a bigger hole in the budget than than the money they're going to get from these discretionary cuts. Trump's tax cuts cost $300 billion every single year. So that's the trillion every 4.5 years, give or take. Like, that's not a small amount of money. Like, you can't just cut taxes forever and expect to be able to keep up with the government's obligations. Like,
I mean,
a certain gotta give.
yeah, I mean, that's how numbers kind of work, right? Where the other thing Republicans have proposed, and I might have said it earlier, is they wanted to cut the spending by $4.8 trillion over a decade. I don't know what cutting $4.8 trillion off of our total debt's really going to do, especially over a decade, while we continue to add to the debt at an exponentially faster rate. And like, the fact that there's like such a severe mismanagement of funds, how much money that how much money is spent on the
million.
Yeah, just how much money is spent on national defense. My brain was like trying to think of the word that they use, national defense, and I literally couldn't compute it. It was not like national defense in my head. It was taking advantage of other countries and all this other stuff that we do that really should not be getting involved in, but that's a different conversation. And it's just it fucking pisses me off.
Yeah, and then like one of the other things they're going to be doing is adding work reporting requirements as well for things like Medicaid, SNAP, and TAMP, because if you're relying on those things, I don't know, like, I'm just really against like all the like sort of like work reporting when it comes to those kind of things, because they don't really give out that much money. Like, if you're talking about like dozens to maybe hundreds of dollars, and this money can be a difference between you feeding your family and not feeding your family. And for example, if you're a single mother with like 2 kids, especially if they're young kids, you might not be able to work because like you can't afford daycare. There's no like paid childcare here in this country. So now you're risking losing your like, it just puts you in a really bad situation.
Yeah, I mean, I absolutely agree. What's hilarious to me is going back to like the national defense part and the military industrial complex, the amount of money, like, one big reason why that's not cut is because of the dividends and all the stocks that our senators and congressmen can get and can like use insider information to benefit themselves. I mean, I think recently Matt Gaetz, surprisingly, and AOC have teamed up to basically pass an anti-trading bill, basically preventing congressmen from trading stock. And I think it makes like a lot of sense, like, actually. And it literally, I think a congressman recently benefited, and I can't remember his name right off the top of my head. When First Republic Bank was going down, he put in short options for it, and he made a ton of money. And then, who bought First Republic Bank? Of course, Chase. And when Chase bought it, Chase's stock went up, and of course he bought Chase stock. And so now, like, he's made literally probably over hundreds of thousands of dollars, if not millions, all because of like they're allowed to use their insider information to trade. And I think it's really unfair, and it pisses me off, as many things do.
Yeah, I remember that story actually, and I actually remember it was a woman, it was Lois Frankel from Florida, Democrat.
Wow, a Democrat, nonetheless. That's
It's like George Carlin said, and I'm going to end up saying this a lot across the entire history of this podcast, but there's a big old club, and we ain't invited.
Yep. And we aren't going to be invited. It's like there's no way they are ever gonna they're not gonna ever let us in. And what's insane to me is a similar type of bill was trying to get passed back in January of this year, and it was dubbed the Pelosi Act, which I think is hilarious because Pelosi is a known insider trader, and it's fucking hilarious.
Yeah, this is the same bill by that was proposed by Josh Hawley, correct?
Yeah, I believe so.
Josh Hawley, the guy, I guess, even the broken insurrectionist is right twice a day. But yeah, I will say, and I'll give Matt Gaetz credit on this. Josh Hawley, we'll come to that one later date. I don't know how I feel about him, but Matt Gaetz, he's been incredibly consistent on this kind of issue. And yes, we shouldn't, if you're in Congress, you shouldn't be allowed to trade stocks. You shouldn't be able to be in position to influence the U.S. economy and benefit from those decisions. And a lot, what's good for the stock market isn't necessarily what's good for labor. And we're seeing this, we've seen this throughout the entire history of this country, because in the day this country was founded by a bunch of slave owning landowners who didn't think anyone except for themselves should be able to vote. But we've seen a long history in this country of where when it comes to what's good for labor or what's good for the capitalist class, the country always sides with the capitalist class, and that's just not how things should be. The government should be working for its workers. So when you're a member of the government or you're an elected official and you're sitting here, you're trading stocks, you're gonna be compromised. You're just by default, because what's good for your portfolio is not necessarily what's good for labor. And we see that with the Fed, with how the Fed's been basically using interest rates to punish labor. Because, hey, we can't let those poor people make too much money. How else am I going to be able to afford my next penis rocket so I can go to quote unquote space?
I mean, and I personally would not go as far as to attack capitalism, because I don't think we live in a capitalist state. I think capitalism is dead in this country. It is very much not with corporatism. It's literally anything but capitalism, because capitalism was founded on the idea of whoever can make the best product for the cheapest prices will be able to succeed. But it's more that there's a select few that get to win. So select corporations and select elite groups get to be on the top. And yeah, it's one of the many tragic things about where we're at in politics, and the fact that the country, the United States of America as a country, needs to worry about its debt ceiling, and the fact that not we, but we as in the congressmen and senators are able to kind of use the budget that they make to benefit their family. And it's not just hundreds of thousands of dollars, it's probably millions, especially those congressmen and senators that have been in power for so long, like Ted Cruz and some other individuals. It kind of they get to benefit while normal people are continuously struggling, and they get to piggyback off our hard work. And what really is funny to me is that they don't like it when the economy goes into a recession, but the economy goes into a recession because normal people can't afford things that these companies are producing. Like this whole economy, this whole country is built off the backs of consumers, and like there's like very little regard for the consumers and the people themselves behind it.
Yeah, absolutely. And like, I don't know, like we could talk about this like all day, but I mean, the worst thing about like the debt ceiling fight in the day is that like, not saying the debt doesn't matter, but the debt doesn't matter, you know, like as long as like we can keep paying off our interest rates, which you know we can do, so long as like the country has enough revenue to cover those interest rates, then like in the short term the debt doesn't matter. And it's not like we've reduced the debt across like all these debt ceiling fights that we have every single year. You know, like have we reduced the debt? No.
No.
Then it doesn't seem like it's that earth shattering of a problem, does it? You know,
like it would be one thing is if we were actually working towards reducing our debt. If that graph was going down and not completely up the whole time, then it would be a different conversation of, yeah, we are actually prioritizing that. No, we're prioritizing congressmen and millionaires and all the people at the top continuously making money while normal people still struggle. And this debt that continues to rise, it's taking from the normal people. It's not taking from the rich people. They're making their money somehow. They have all of the stuff that they have, and it's taking away from us normal people. And it's like it's a tale as old as time, really. That's what it is. And we ain't invited to the party, so you know.
yeah. And like here's the thing about like the debt is like if we want to have a conversation about the deficit, we can have a conversation about the deficit, but like you can't cut taxes and expect to cut into the deficit. Like part of the reason why the deficit is so big is because we just keep cutting taxes over the last 20 years.
Yeah. And it's, I mean, how are they like, they're cutting taxes for those people, but raising taxes on the middle class, raising taxes on like the lower middle class, etc. And just even like the upper middle class. Like, I think I read an article like maybe a week or two ago where it was like literally you need to be making $300,000 at your job to be taking home $100,000 in New York City. $300,000 is a lot of fucking money. Like that's a lot, and all they're taking home is a third of that, and like that's like, I think that's ridiculous because like one, where is the money going, and then two, why are they having to pay for it when there's people that have literally billions of dollars that could afford to take a hit?
Absolutely, yeah. And like, you know, what really becomes really funny too is that like if you actually care about like reducing the deficit, the answer is to vote Democrat. Like if you look at the history of this country, Democrats always reduce the deficit, Republicans always raise the deficit. And then when they raise the deficit, they say, hey, look, we can't afford this anymore. We need to cut taxes for people like me.
Yeah. On a worse note, the railway workers finally got a whole 4 days of sick paid leave. And it's a whole 4 days. You know what they were asking for, Marcel? They were asking for 7. Yeah. And like all they get is I think 4, right? Or is it 3?
You can double check that here in just a second, but either way, it's certainly insufficient amount of like.
Yeah, it's 100,000 employees, and all they get is 4 paid sick days a year, and this was through negotiations. And they're, in addition to that, they were given the option to take 3 more paid sick days from personal days. Boy, what? Like, what do you do when your kid is sick? You have to go take care of them. You can't just leave a sick kid at home. Now, what do you do if you get sick at another time in the year? You take personal days. And then now what about vacations? You don't really get vacations either now. So yeah. Like, what the fuck?
Well, and like what's crazy is like in the rail companies, like every other major business in this country, is making record profits because, hey, why not raise prices? So they're making record profits. They're making the most amount of money they ever made, and like literally like this, the way that they're running these trains bare bones. They've refused to upgrade the brakes in a manner that could have prevented a lot of the crashes that we've seen as of late, and they refuse to even give their workers like any sick leave, and it took public outcry at the fact that railway workers weren't getting any sick leave for them to even get not even a work week's worth of sick leave.
It's an absolute tragedy, and it's 4 companies too. It's BNSF, CSX, Norfolk Southern, and Union Pacific, and it's like CSX was the first to grant paid sick leave to several of its unions, and it's now granted sick days to 61%. So that's not even all of them, guys. That's not even the whole 100,000. And like Union Pacific granted 50%, nearly. It's 47. Norfolk Southern granted 46%. BNSF granted 31. And by the way, BNSF is the largest. So what the fuck? They have the money. That they transportation is very valuable in any country. So don't tell me that you can't afford it. You can't afford it, then maybe you shouldn't be open.
Yeah, well, and that's the thing, is that it's not they 100% can't afford it, but this is the country we live in right now, where you have this small class of greedy rich assholes, and in my opinion, idiots, because this isn't very this doesn't seem like this does not seem like a smart decision to be making. But when you they just basically fill in their own pockets. They don't care who gets hurt in the day. It's incredibly sociopathic economy, I guess you could phrase it as. But it's just to boost their own profits. Train crashes, destroys all the goods it's carrying, pollutes an entire community, injures or hurts your workers. Who cares? That's not you. It's not your problem. Let insurance pay for it. Okay. But
and it's what about those communities that were polluted? What about all the people that were hurt in that situation? What do they get out of that? Nothing. They get absolutely fucking nothing.
Yeah, I mean that's the attitude. Fuck them. They don't live there. Do you think the executives live in these communities? No. They don't have to spend time in these communities. It's the railway workers that are from these communities. It's working class people that are going to deal with them. It's those dirty poors, and we don't care about them. We don't care. We don't feel like we owe any sort of obligation to them. So, excuse me, I have to. My competitor, he got a slightly bigger yacht than me, so I have to upgrade now.
Oh yeah. And on that note, I think this is a good time for us to take our break, because coming up next, we'll be talking about Lion Ted and him saying, fuck it to the poors. Bye.
Hey everyone, we're back with your regularly scheduled program, Darkside Politics with Marcel and Sham. What's up, Sham?
And back again, back at it. We're going to start this session off with talking about Lion Ted versus a man that's running against him, Colin Allard. He announced for a 2024 run against the Republicans. Did you know that it's nearly impossible, which I'm sure, I don't know why I said did you know, because of course you know, but it's really hard for a Democrat to win an election in Texas. Apparently, a Democrat hasn't won a statewide election in Texas since 1994. That's literally older than me, or longer than me, longer than I've been alive. I don't know why I had to say it that way. It's probably longer than me too, because I'm short as fuck, but it's fine.
Yeah. And Beto came close in 2018, and that's probably the closest we came to getting Ted out of there. But you know, like Beto certainly, like, he was able to excite the base of the Democratic Party, but that wasn't enough to get him over that hump. And I think, you know, Beto made a lot of mistakes leading up to 2018 that, you know, possibly could have cost him the win, because, you know, no one likes Ted Cruz.
Yeah, I mean, nobody, I mean, look at the face. Like, everybody just look up the face of Ted Cruz. Zoom in real close, and then you'll regret it. And, you know, you'll probably never listen to us again. But the election race with Beto and Cruz was really close. It was 2.5%, almost nearly about 200,000 votes, which isn't that much in a state like as the size of Texas. And I think Allard might be the man. I have no idea. This is purely speculation, but he's son of a single mother, a former NFL player, and he has worked with in like both sides of the line pretty consistently. So I don't know. He might be the hope for Texas. He might not. Well, I don't know. I guess it depends on what a Texan wants.
Yeah.
It's just shocking to me that Lion Ted has won so often, because, I mean, he literally went to Cancun when the people in his state were dying from lack of food, water, and all this other stuff because they didn't have any power because of a horrible winter storm.
Well, technically, I don't think he actually ever made it to Cancun. Oh, no, sorry. He made it to Cancun, but then he came back because that's what his original plan always was. He was only going to Cancun to make sure his family was all right. But he fully intended to come back to Texas. And, you know, regardless of whether or not someone would have caught him or not, he was definitely going to still come back to Texas.
I mean, I guess it could have been a poorly planned trip, but also, like, what the fuck? If the moment you hear that, like, I think your people or you should be like, I think I'm just going to stay here, for whether it's the ops or if you actually care about the people in your state, which I don't know if he actually does. I don't think he does.
I don't think he does either. I was just being really sarcastic, but you know, like I hope that Allred has a chance. You know, Cruz already did the usual, you know, he wants men to compete in women's sports, isn't serious about addressing the crisis at the border, which neither you, Ted, wants to take away law-abiding Texans' guns and is soft in punishing murderers. Like that, especially that last one. It's just like, listen, we just needed another thing. We just have to pull that right out of our ass. But you know, like a robot could have came up with that one, but you know, like that shit seems to work. You know, Cruz, despite everything, is probably one of the more powerful Republicans in the country. You know, like besides like Donald Trump, people like Donald Trump, Mitch McConnell. Like, I mean, Ted Cruz definitely has to be top 10 elected most like influential elected Republican officials.
I mean, easily, yeah. And then also coming from such a powerful state, like such a large, big body state as Texas, I think that is defining. And then on top of him, just like being where he's at in this political climate, but also he's just so bad at his job too. So it's like, how can you be so bad but still so like high up there? And I guess it's because people like Marjorie Taylor Greene and all these other people, not to name names, I guess, but continues to name names, and are part of the Republican Party.
Yeah. Well, and Ted's also really good at just like putting his, like, I will say Ted Cruz is like, it's super transparent the way he does it, but Ted Cruz will like, he's like a parasite, you know, he'll attach himself to anybody, doesn't care. As long as he thinks that will do the job of keeping him in power and keep him in front of cameras, you know. I mean, Donald Trump, for God's sake, like insulted his wife publicly, and Cruz spent 4 years, over 4 years, flating the guy. So that's what he is. He's going to attach himself to whatever he thinks the wind is blowing. If it ends up being DeSantis, he'll attach himself to DeSantis, and he'll be right there next to DeSantis. And if it's Trump, he'll slimy his way back up next to Trump as well.
No, that's the funny part too, because like he when Trump lost, he distanced himself. But watch, once Trump starts running again, he's gonna,
Hmm.
and if I don't know if he's gonna decide to run or not. I personally just want to see him run because I just want to see him flail. It's gonna be hilarious and just overall purely entertaining. Especially with all the name callings. Like I love calling it, but it's gonna be a really meme-tastic election year. There's gonna be so many memes, and it's just gonna, I can't even wait.
Yeah, it will definitely be an interesting election year, and like hopefully Allred's able to do it. Who knows? Who knows what can happen? 2024 is still like over a year away, the election anyways. Like, I don't know, Ted Cruz could get punched in the face. I mean, that's
I
just
would
my,
love to see that.
I'm just hoping for that happens. I don't really, regardless of whether or not he wins and loses, I just, would like to see him and Matt Gaetz, like to see both of them get punched in the face, just very punchable faces, the two of them. Uh,
Ted especially, like, I don't know much. I try not to remember what Matt Gaetz looks like, but Ted's face is like really ingrained in my head. The
yeah.
like extra greasy hair, like the face, just all of it. It's just lion Ted, all of it. It's all just really stuck well together in my head. So that would be very funny. Not that I'm calling for violence. I would like to say that. Not calling for violence. We shouldn't hurt each other, but it would be very funny if somebody were to punch Ted Cruz in the face.
Yes, it would. And to that person out there, thank you. Your service is appreciated.
Yeah.
All right. Do you want to talk about prawn?
Yeah, sure. And so my Pornhub, I know a lot of people know Pornhub for the right and wrong reasons. And do with that what you will. I don't know what the right or wrong reasons are.
You might
The
say
state,
or
sorry,
you might say the relationships are intimate.
an intimate relationship can be very visual on Pornhub. And well, the state of Utah is no longer allowed on the website. Basically, what happened is that Utah required people to verify their age by uploading pictures of their ID on a website that is probably known to give viruses to computers. And well, giving your ID every time you want to visit an adult platform is not an effective way to protect the users. And it might even put people's privacies at risk because just imagine having to upload your ID every time you go on a website like that, and you literally like it's going out into the ethernet, and who knows who's going to see it. It's got your address, it's got how tall you are, where you live, it's just got all sorts of information, and it could really be incriminating.
Yeah. Or like, let's say one of these sites gets hacked. Um, and all of a sudden, especially, your name starts getting associated with some of your search history. You know, there could be a certain influential person for you know, this the sake of this analogy, we'll refer to this person as Lindsey Graham. Uh, and Lindsey, avails himself of these services, and his information gets leaked because he has to upload his ID, and all of a sudden it's a big story that Lindsey happens to like I don't know, femboys or something. Again, just completely fictional person name I made up off the top of my head. But you can see how that could that's not something that I think a lot of people really want to have to deal with. Like it's a private sort of matter, as he said.
Exactly. And then on top of that, like Republicans are always talking about, oh, they want less government involvement. Let's involve the government less. Well, I feel like this is like kind of an overreach. And why does it matter to the Utah governor or the government? I mean, I think this was also required in the state of Louisiana, right?
Yeah, Louisiana required it. It's part of like the like we talked about, remember last week we talked about how, like, when like there's a trend going on in public circles, you start seeing everyone doing it. Like this is the new trend, requiring ID to be able to view porn because you have to protect the children from porn. Like kids
Coming
have
to
smart.
Florida soon.
Yeah, Florida's been talking about it too. You know, like it's just nonsense culture war stuff. And at the end of the day, like negatively impacts law-abiding Americans who just need to de-stress from a hard day of work. And like
I mean, like,
government should be involved in it, in my opinion. Like government doesn't need to be in my pants.
why does the government need to be involved? Number two, aren't there more important things that they should be working on? Like, I don't know, education, food, housing. I could name a few other things off the top of my head, such as the environment, climate change, trash services, traffic, public transportation. Should I keep
Well,
going, or
look at Che. I don't know. Look at Che Guevara here. Hugo Chavez. It's sounding real communist over here, Sham. With all this better things to do and healthcare and environment.
You just called me the C word. I'm
I didn't.
literally. You just called me the C word.
I didn't call you the C word. I would never call a woman the C word.
I mean, you said the other
However,
C word.
I correctly identify this caring as people as anti-capitalist and anti-freedom. That's the words I think I was hearing coming out of your mouth, Sham.
I am anti-freedom. In fact, yes, I am completely anti-freedom, and I also support the fact that people should not have to upload their IDs, and the government shouldn't be involved with that. Yes, that is where I'm at. I don't know. I don't think freedom should exist.
Well, don't tread on me, Sham, on my attempts to tread on you, is what I would say to that.
I mean, and I think that's what the Republican states are literally doing, is don't tread on me on my attempts to tread on you. Yes. The best way of people just going about their lives, whether that's in trans matters or whether that's in porn or whether that's in all the meaningless ways. They're overtaking people's freedoms, but in ways that matter, such as the type of chemicals that go into your food packaging, or the type of chemicals that go into food processing, or the quality of food you get, the quality of air. I mean, public transportation. Let me just stop with all these C ideas.
Yeah. Otherwise, when the red, I don't know, I'm losing track of my analogy, but I guess, we'll see what other states end up happening. This will definitely backfire on the Republicans. Like, there is no way in heck that this does not backfire,
Oh, 100%. I think everybody watches porn, like whether you're a Republican or a Democrat, and whether you like to admit it or not, it's kind of wild.
I don't remember when they did this. I want to say it was Pornhub actually released like there's like a thing of like the picture United States, and you click on which state and see what's the most popular type in each state.
I did not. So tell me about this.
All right, well, let me see if I can find it, because I remember there being some surprises. Just fucking up just fucking up my search history. This is about from actually this is a bit more recent. So here we go. All right. So pick a state.
Well, Florida, just because that's where I'm from.
BBC.
Okay. Utah.
Utah.
That's what we're talking about.
Utah's actually just says right here, it just says Mormon. I was real surprised. Oh, I guess you can't be too surprised by that. I guess that's a category nowadays.
Interesting. New York City. Place as liberal as New York City.
Dominican.
California.
Asian. But Oregon's furry.
Okay. Kind of suspected Oregon. Honestly, I'm not surprised by that.
Yeah.
North Carolina.
Ooh, North Carolina smoking.
Smoking?
Yes, smoking.
Oh my
Oh,
God, that's hilarious.
you went West Virginia though is trans.
Wow,
I
that's
think
surprising.
Joe Manchin might have something else to tell us. Talk to us about.
Texas?
Panties.
What?
Texas is panties. Yeah, it just says panties.
Well, okay.
I know, like, yeah, it's definitely not as memorable as I remember it being. I guess we've gotten a little bit more shrewd, or maybe we just gotten more specific with the options. Like, there's just a lot more specificity um, in
You
it.
know,
But like,
I
yeah, it's.
that's surprising to me. That's
I mean,
hilarious.
we're humans. We're all a bunch of freaks. We're just trying to get our nut off. You know.
You're right. You ain't wrong about that. You
All
ain't
right.
wrong
So
about that one bit.
you want
On a
to.
speaking of getting our nut on, um, the the anti-Biden ad has come out from the GOP, and it's AI generated, and it's an AI generated look into the country's possible future if Joe Biden is reelected. I would just like to this would this is going to be great, as they like to say. Um, see, an AI generated look into the country's possible future if Joe Biden is reelected. This came out in April 25th of 2023. Let's see it.
This just in, we can now call the 2024 presidential race for Joe Biden.
My fellow Americans.
What if?
This morning, an emboldened China invades Taiwan.
Financial markets are in free fall as 500 regional banks have shuttered their doors.
Border agents were overrun by a surge of 80,000 illegals yesterday evening.
Officials closed the city of San Francisco this morning, citing the escalating crime and fentanyl crisis.
Who's in charge here?
It feels like the train is coming off the tracks.
Feels like the train is coming off the tracks.
You
How do
know.
you feel about that clip?
Well, I certainly understand why like the Hollywood writers are striking against AI content, because like that's exactly what I would imagine a GOP ad would sound like if it was made by AI. Literally hit all the buttons. Crime in San Francisco.
The Taiwan
migrants.
and China war.
Yeah. But I also have to just wonder, like, Biden's been president for 3 years so far.
Yeah.
Like, did all this stuff just happen to wait till a second term? China's like, listen, you guys, we really want to invade Taiwan, but we have to make sure Biden gets a second term first before we do it. All these people just sitting at the border, just dealing with the complete like shit show that our immigration system is, which could make like an entire Vice special on its own, and I'm pretty sure it has. We were gonna storm the gates of Area 51. I mean, the United States of America. They can't stop us all. But everyone, we need to wait for Biden's second term. He needs to get reelected first, and then we're gonna storm in there with all of the illegal votes.
All 80,000 illegal votes. What kind of really irks me about it is that like it's very much fear mongering, because I watched that and I had heart palpitations. I was like, God damn, that's stressful. Is that Biden's America? Probably not. Most definitely not. I mean, I just don't like how fear mongering and fear based that ad was. And that's kind of what the whole Republican quid quo quip, whatever the word is, to like, that's their modus operandum, is to fearmonger people into thinking that that's what Democrats want, which isn't it at all. It's, we literally want to pay for your mom's cancer treatments and also help get you free college. That's literally it. I mean, and I know people, like, I know Republicans would benefit, like Republican voters would benefit from Democratic bills and Democrat funded policies and stuff. So it's just sad to see like that's what they're using is what they have is fear. They don't have, oh, we're going to do all of these great things. It's look at all these scary things that could potentially happen that are most likely not going to happen.
Yeah. I'm surprised that people don't, because I just kind of feel numb to these kind of ads because they're literally the same every single time. You know, I don't know how Republican voters just see this same ad, see the same narrative every day they watch Fox News, and at some point are just like, well, when's it coming? You know, like at a certain point, you know, you think you feel like the Republican voter would have like blue balls from like the amount of like immigrants are coming to like take your women and your children. But hey, it keeps them coming, keeps them voting, and you know, like I wish I knew, like I wish there was an easy answer to it, I guess is what I'm trying to say, because you know, you think the argument of, hey, you want to go to the doctor, you know, not have to worry about being bankrupt would be a better, more persuasive argument than that. But
yeah,
what do I know?
Or you want like you want to be protected from companies that harvest your data. All right, cool. Or do you want like clean water and clean air? Here you go. But of course, these positive things are not going to be highlighted. And it's just, you know, they just want to use fear-based tactics. They don't actually provide anything of value. It's really just hearsay. And what's so funny to me is our first president in Washington was like, he was very anti-parties. He was very like, that's how you know when things go downhill. I think not even 5 presidents later, we were down the party hole. So, you know,
not even outside of like Washington's like tenure, like political parties are already forming while he was president.
Yeah. So like, I mean, I guess it makes sense because we are very group or tribe-based creatures, but at the same time, it's like, guys, we're trying to accomplish something. And then when we're trying to accomplish something, we need to work together. But that's not obviously a conversation that's to be had. It's he said this and they said that and she said this, and let's try to limit people from getting the things that they need.
Well, Sham, I totally hear you on working together, you know, in a communal type of fashion, you know, you would say. You know, so but that sounds very anti-freedom to me, to be working in that kind of communal way. So how about every person for themselves? Fuck you, I got mine.
I mean, I am anti-freedom, so you know, it makes sense. I think if I ever was to run for office, what if my logo was anti-freedom? You think I'd win?
Well, I mean, who are you anti-freedom for? You know, are you anti-freedom for the Mexicans? You want to lock up the trans people? You might do okay.
No, I'm just anti-freedom for everyone.
Yeah. Well, don't forget, we need all this for freedom. We need to be protected from the government overreach, says the people that march with the cops.
And make you upload your ID so you can watch porn.
Yeah. All this beautiful freedom. We will force feed it to you. You will like it.
I feel like I'm a child again. That hurts.
Yeah, your compliance was not a factor.
Nope.
All right.
Well, it was a good episode, I think, and I think we're calling it a wraps.
Yeah, I think we're hitting our stride here.
Thanks for joining us again. See you next week. Bye. Marcel gives the sad bye.
I did. I just gave a little bit of